What's good, cuties? We're finally doing this bullshit. We got a project breakdown. I'm gonna be covering the remix of Waiting on My Phone. The goal with this is to kind of obviously like show you how I made this shit, but like I want to show y'all that like it doesn't take a lot of money to make bangers. I mean, fucking FO Mobile is $15. If you got like a phone, you could use this shit. Literally everything I'm using is it's all just stock plugins and like stock drums and all that bullshit. So yeah, hopefully this inspires someone out there to pick up their phone or their laptop or their PC as long as it has Windows. I don't know about Linux, I don't know about y'all, but in any case, shall we get into it? So yeah, I want to start because this is kind of the order that I like usually make my songs. I'm gonna start with the drop. Yeah, first thing I wanted to show y'all was how, I mean, the most obvious thing, it's the percussion. It's a DMB track. So I have some DMB percussion. I basically, like, I didn't go too crazy with this. Minimal kick 6. Like, literally, all my samples are minimal kicks. It's right here. It's right fucking there. It's minimal kick 6, and then power snare 35. I mean, look, there's no excuse. If you want to make music, you can make music, dude. Very simple kick snare, and it goes like this. And yeah, it's just basically that the whole time, or with the exception of like this. So yeah, let me show you how I made this kick. So like if it turn off all the bullshit, really what makes it kind of punch harder is the EQ and distortion. So without these, it sounds like this. It's weak as fuck. So what I learned, I forgot who I learned this from. Was it Fox Stevenson? I'm gonna try to credit all the people that I learned from, so you could also go like watch them, learn from them. Fox Stevenson, I think it was him. He does a lot of good production streams, even though like I don't even know if I learned this from him, but I think I learned this from him. You just boost. If you boost like the 100, it'll make it punch harder, like without you having to raise the volume. Because one thing that I have a really bad habit of doing is leaving my percussion really fucking loud. And you can hear it in the old version. I don't know if I'll keep that up, but if you hear it, like the percussion is kind of fucking loud. You can especially hear it in the Travel Plus remix, which I also fixed up. That'll be the next one. But this will make it hit a tiny bit hard. This is like how you get punch in your shit, in your kicks. So without the EQ. With the EQ. Punches just a tiny bit more, but because that's not enough all the time, in fact I do this like pretty much every time, I add some fucking clip distortion, soft clip distortion here. I turn the drive up a tiny bit, and now it sounds like this. Punches harder, it's a little bit louder, but it sits better in the mix than, like, for example, I'll just play the track. So you kind of get it. For the snare, we got reverb on it. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot what I put on all this shit, but like there's some reverb on it. I don't know why the reverb is before everything. It's probably why it sounds like ass. But yeah, soft clip, and then here is kind of, yeah, let me just, yeah, distortion just to make it hit harder. And then right here, I kind of found like where, so basically if you do this, you just let the sound play. Make a little peak. You can kind of see what frequencies stick out the most in the sound. You got a little dip if it's too much, or if it's not enough, which is basically like the same thing we did here. Just add a little peak and it'll boost that frequency and make it stick out wherever you want it. So yeah, that's basically everything for this shit. For the rest of the percussion, it's just hats and shit. Got a little crash, but that's not a crash. Or it's a hat. It's an open hat that I use as a crash. This is just a little thing that plays on the offbeat. Here's a little shaker. Or it's a hat that I turned into a shaker. I basically just turned up the attack, lower the decay. It sounds like this. And yeah, just velocity. so it emphasizes the second and fourth beat. And then there's a little ride here that kind of just grooves. I know it doesn't really sound like it, but it took a lot of inspiration from Porter Robinson's song with Wednesday Campanella. Campanella. Fuck, what's it called? Full Moon Lullaby. There you go. And so I just used a ride, just like almost like a cowbell kind of thing, but it's mainly for groove purposes. It's more felt than it is heard. One thing to keep in mind, especially for new artists, you don't need to use, for example, I turned a hat into a shaker. I turned a hat into a crash. You don't need, like, just because it says symbol doesn't mean you have to use it as a symbol. Just because it says hat doesn't mean you have to use it as a hat. You can turn hats into snares. You can turn a hat into a fucking kick if you're fucking virtual art or some shit. Yeah, be creative with your shit. Like, don't, music isn't this. It's not this. It's like, and then on the second half of the drop, we have a little, I think we have a hat that kind of pans left and right. Okay, no, it doesn't pan. I lied to you, I'm sorry. But it adds energy to the second half of the drop. Yeah, that's it for the percussion used in the drop. Well, except for this, we have this hat. This is the one that pans left and right. I just reversed it. Yeah, pitch is up 13. So what it sounds like. But I liked how it sounded right here. Just played with the pitch for a little bit until I found a good place. Just before the drop and in the middle of the drop, I have this little, just a tom that has a delay on it. I kind of took inspiration from, like, I guess some like deep dubstep tracks that I hear. They'll put like hella delay and reverb on a drum fill. So I try to make something along the lines of that. And yeah, it ended up being this. I just put one tom and let it echo. And yeah, it just sounds like this. Now that's all the percussion. For the sidechain, literally you can't sidechain normally in FO. There's no like shaper box in this hoe. Well, you got auto duck, but it kind of sucks. So I just use a leveler and I draw it out myself. The sidechain automation on other things is sometimes harder or harsher, so you'll see like it dips all the way to 0. And then for things like the hats, it's lighter on it. The purpose of sidechaining, I should probably explain if you're new. Oh, it has two main functions: to make the kick hit harder and to avoid clashing of the bass and the kick, because the kick and the bass are both bassy. And basically, the lower on the frequency spectrum you are, the less sounds you want taking up that space. The higher you get, the more things can like work together up there. To prevent the clashing on the more bassier sounds, you'll have harsher side chaining so that like it doesn't clash at all. Then for like the higher sounds, it's like weaker. Yeah, generally, the more space it takes up down here, the heavier you want the side chain. The more space it takes up here, the less heavier you can have it. I mean, you could also just like sidechain harshly for everything, but generally, hey, whatever works for your ears. Like, don't do everything I'm fucking telling you to do. Whatever works for your ears. If you want the bass and the kick, if you don't want to sidechain the bass because it sounds good, fucking do it. I don't fucking care. No one cares. Next thing I want to go over is the chords, because this is the next most obvious thing. So yeah, you can hear the sidechain, obviously. So yeah, so basically, this track was made after the Travel Plus remix that I made. And so these are called travel chords, because this is the same like chord things that I used in Travel. This is the secret to having full sounding chords. Just stack a shit ton until it sounds good. What I like to do generally for all songs that have chords like this, something that like fills the mono space. And so I have this. It's just like, what is this, a square? I don't fucking know. There are no voices, just no unison, bullshit. Like, it's literally just I'm pretty sure it's a square wave. Cut off the highs. Always cut off the highs. You don't need it in most of your sounds except for the hats. Okay, so I forgot who I learned this from. I think it was Jaws who learned it from Sullivan King or Sudden Death. It was one of them. It's called the 7K trick. Well, ideally, you can't do it with this, but you can kind of get there. You can't do it with FL Mobile's EQ because it sucks. Like, I'll briefly explain it in a minute, but basically the 7K trick, you just basically cut everything after 7K. You just high shelf. You just do this. But you can't do that with this EQ, the FL Mobile stock EQ, because it's a low cut like this. The steeper I make it, the more it creates like a peak like right here. So like if I have it like this, it's gonna basically make it sound like this. Even though it doesn't show you that, it's gonna do that, and it sucks. But you gotta deal with it. So basically what I do is smooth it out. I drag the shit all the way to the edge, and then I put the bandwidth like anywhere between like 10 through like 15 works. I generally stay around 12. It's 11 here, but I like to stay around 12 just because I feel like that's the sweet spot. And then yeah, I cut off the lows because you don't need them. And then I put a little dip like around 4K because like 3 to 5K is like harsh on your ears, and especially when you got like 5 different chord bullshits playing 3 to 5K, it's gonna sound like it's gonna hurt your ears. So like you dip it a little bit. I usually do like 2 decibels. Should be enough. And yeah, that's basically the same shape for all of these. And of course there's like a reverb on the send, but yeah, no reverb on the actual thing. I don't think I put reverb on any of these actually, because I was just gonna, none of these have reverb. They're all here. It all gets reverbed here, which I'll get into in a sec. Next we got treble chords 1. It does it right here. Now we got treble chords 2. So this is the wide shit. This is like the bulk of the chords. So like I start off with the mono, and then I make one as like big and full and wide as possible. If I were to make them from scratch, that's what I would do. I'd start off with the mono, make one as wide as possible, and then I'll fill in whatever needs to be filled in with these, like the extra ones. Yeah, same thing. Dip around 4K, cut off the lows, cut off the highs. And I put a stereoizer on it just to make it wider. It's basically what it does. I didn't even touch anything. It's just wide. If you want to see how this looks, sub oscillator is up. Detune is up. User pen is up. User phase, I have no idea what this shit does, but it's up. Next we got treble chords 3. Who would have thought? This is what the shit looks like. It didn't fuck with anything else. Cut off the lows, cut off the highs. Dip around 4K with like a bandwidth of anywhere from like 15 to 20. No stereoizer on this one because I wanted it to be not as wide. I wanted it to be like really detuned but kind of mono. Next we got treble chords 4. Would have guessed. It's less voices, stereoizer, same thing here, but less voices, so it kind of has a different timbre. And then treble chords 5. This is the high one. Just to fill higher frequencies. And usually when I make chord shits like this, I put just one high one. It fills those higher frequencies, but it also doesn't do it too much. Yeah, that's basically everything for the chords. This is what they sound like alone. Very big, very big. That's how you get the millennium chords. Over here, you got the send. So all of these are routed to this. Basically, you just go over here, like sends, add a send, effect 5. This is effect 5. But they're all in here. This is the sidechain automation. We got a reverb on it. The filter, which you'll see comes into play like right here, in the before the second half of the drop, or like the second half of the drop. It's literally just, it activates, opens up, and then it turns back off, because if you have to keep it on, it just makes it sound like shit. You don't want to keep the filter on when you're automating it. Just turn it on for when you need it, and then turn it back off, You could automate the enable thing. And then I also automated the frequency, turn the resonance up. The resonance is what gives it the ring. There are two different kinds of reverb, actually. So this is the normal reverb that is just always on. But this reverb, I automate the mix. So like at the end of the drop, or the reverb mix is going up. So you hear like the reverb tail getting louder, and it kind of builds tension into the second half of the drop as it's building up. This is very subtle. Then again, we're taking away highs, taking away lows, and then getting rid of mud. If you want to know what the voicings look like, they're all the same. This is it. I couldn't tell you what my thought process was, but look, when you're making chord voicings, AU5 said it best. It's the most like overlooked and overthought thing in making music. It doesn't have to be that complicated. It just needs to do its job. This is something you just kind of get used to. You could literally just like put the chord, basic, what is this? A flat major. I just put a ninth, fifth, and a third, major third. Yeah, that's all I did. I'm pretty sure I did the same thing for like all of this shit. It's not as complicated as it seems. Just hit the mic, sorry. Yeah, it's all the same. They're all doing the same thing. Don't need to like, make it too complicated. Then the last thing I want to go over is, you hear it over here. A lot more high end on the second half, because this is kind of like the climax of the song. So like as the drop evolves, there's just more tension. And so yeah, that's a little trick I learned from, or I copied from Ica, strobe lights in particular. The last thing is the ooze. Yeah, it's just literally DW sampler. I don't know what the fuck this is. Direct wave, there you go. Direct wave sampler. And I changed it up a tiny bit by, I don't know what this does, but it's just a filter. Turn the cutoff down to 90, resonance up to 11. There's a phaser on it to emphasize the ooh. Stereoizer to make it wide. Reverb, and then EQ to clean it up. Below, I believe the cutoff is automating. It's opening up over time and then resetting. So it kind of like builds tension to this point, then builds tension to this point, then goes back and builds tension to this point, and does that, drop the whole drop. If you want to hear what it sounds like without effects. Honestly, it kind of sounds funny. But I think I have it there just because it's just movement. Sound is always changing and evolving. Next thing is the basses. This one's gonna be way quicker, trust. Oh yeah, and hold up, before I even get to that. Yeah, just getting rid of low end on the choir. But yeah, next thing anyway. We got the mid bass right here, which took me a long time to perfect. Holy shit. This was like, it was so annoying dealing with this, but this is what it sounds like. Yeah, so GM synth, saw. This basically is just fine tuning to be. FM is like in the middle, I guess. Transparency is down 20, it doesn't matter. Yeah, voices, it's just 3. I had a phaser, I turned it off. Distortion, without it. With it. Then low pass filter so that you get rid of the high end. I just really didn't want any high end in the bass. And then here, it's just like most of the trying to perfect the sound was trying to make it not clash with the sub, which is this, which is always annoying. Dramatic low end shit, just getting rid of it, and then trying to clear up some mud with these. Yeah, that's basically it. And for the sub, sine triangle, Fine tune to B minus 0.6 again. There's nothing particular about this number. I just like turn it down a tiny bit. Triangle is there too. Give it that like raspy almost sound. Put your headphones on, by the way. Yeah, this is what they sound like. And then this EQ, again, I played with the mix, automated it, so that you'd get like I treated this like basically a high pass filter. You hear it in effect like over here. Which is basically just to create tension in the build. And yeah, that's it for the basses. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about this. The little fucking... It's literally just tech snare 44 getting louder over time for the build. Yeah, there's nothing crazy about that. Next, we got the blur vocals, which is an effect 18 for some reason. This is what it sounds like. Yeah, all I did was, it's just a normal vocal. Let me just turn off everything real quick. So the pitcher, just make sure, because it's stretched out so much, sometimes it gets out of key. The pitcher is there to make sure it stays in tune. Compressor is there to make it louder, basically, and then you have a limiter on it, just to make sure it's not too loud. There's a panner on it, which, if I take off the reverb, actually. You can hear it in action a little bit better. There's a stereoizer on it, there's a tape delay on it, there's 2 delays on it, in fact. Couldn't tell you why. So yeah, distortion just makes it louder in this section than it does in this section, if you hear it over here. And then since this is the drop and you want it to stand out more, it's just louder. Yeah, that's basically it for the blur vocal. I'll get to the normal vocals in a sec. Let's do the leads first. So we have a little riff. And then like every 4th one it changes. And then yeah, here everything kind of, if you notice, like everything kind of, it's like a little pre-drop, like break here. So everything falls off, including this, drop the filter and automate it back up. The next thing we have is, actually before we even get to the sound, sorry, I forgot. This is what the shit looks like. There's 8 voices, sub oscillator, all that bullshit. There's no sustain at all, it's just a decay, kind of makes it like a key. There's filtered shit on it, a filter envelope. Then I automate the cutoff. Give it more energy. At the second half of the drop, there's a delay, obviously there's reverb, and then get rid of the low and high end with the shit at 4K. Alright, next sound. This sound, actually, I made this first at the end. And then I basically I cloned this and made it not fucked up. I'll show you what I did. So 2 voices, barely any detune because, well, it's 2 voices. There's some pan, detune spread. It's supposed to sound fucked up, so it's kind of out of tune. Decay again. So there's a phaser on it. This is without the phaser. With the phaser. Just more like sparkly, I guess. This is how you get like the cell phone sound. Like what I did here, I'm pretty sure. The vocal. Yep. So it kind of sounds like it's coming out of a phone or some shit. Got reverb. There's a gate. Kind of makes it sound like choppy. Distortions make it sound fucked up. Hard distortion. Delay. Panner. And I have a saw LFO shape. So that's why it sounds like more choppy. You can kind of hear it. And then more EQ just to shape it a tiny bit more. And then more reverb. Yeah, and that's basically it. And then over here I just cleaned it up a little bit. So it still has the same shit, the same phaser and bullshit. Turned off this EQ, tube distortion instead. Still got the gate, still got the reverb. This delay is now just normal sine LFO shape, and it's just like back and forth. It's more for width, but getting rid of harsh frequencies, and then of course cutting off the high and low end. And then the same thing over here, automated the cutoff. That slowly opens up in a second. And then you get the full thing. So you hear it doesn't sound very great, but then when you have the whole song playing, sounds real nice in the back. Like, you don't have to make all your sounds sound perfect as long as they do their job. And then this was also from why is COD updating? And then this was also, I stole this from Porter again from Full Moon Lullaby. It's just this. It does that the whole time. I think Porter has something on it. I can't quite. I'm pretty sure he has something like this in Full Moon Lullaby. Just adds, just adds like a texture. Kind of gives it a tiniest bit more energy. There's no sidechain on it or anything. It's literally just this. LFO, just frequency. It's very slow. It's very subtle. Kind of one of those things that's also more felt than heard. Next thing is the vocal in the second half. So what I like to do with a lot of vocals, you hear a lot of professionals do this also. Very simple trick. You don't have to be a professional to do it. I'm not. Usually, normally, if you had, any other DAW, you would like record the tail, the reverb tail of a vocal, and then you would reverse it or bounce it to audio and then reverse it, and then it will give you like basically the same effect that this does. But since you can't, it's harder to do that with FL, and it just saves more time. I just put the first like sort of syllable, mostly the vowel of what she sings. Yeah, it just gives you, without telling you that the vocal is coming back or coming in, it's almost preparing the listener for it to come in instead of for the vocal to just abruptly just start singing it. Like it's better, example's better heard over here. So let me just. I'll be waiting up. Hear that? So yeah, it's basically just this, but over here. And I believe since it's in track or effect 18, the volume goes to 0, and then it, like here, it goes back up along with everything else. And then I have a little vocal chop here. So what I did here is just waiting on my phone but chopped up, and it pans to the left and right, and then yeah, it's very distorted, just so it could stick out. And then I have this kind of, it's basically just like this channel just acts as like another delay for this, but it's just higher pitch. You want to know what was on the main vocal, it's just hella reverb, hella distortion, getting rid of the low end, and harsh frequencies up top. And pretty much the same thing for this. Wait, actually I almost forgot the piano. Distorted version of it that you also hear at the end of the song. I almost forgot the effects. White noise. Riser. Like white noise, if you want to know how to make white noise on your own, take mini synth, put it on pulse, turn the noise all the way up. This is just white noise, is what makes it white noise. And then you could automate the cutoff, you could automate the volume of it with like a leveler. You could turn the resonance up to how, like anywhere from 0 to 70 works. I'm pretty sure it doesn't work after 70. I don't know, I never tried it, never bothered. Never really have my resonance all the way up like that. It's because I don't like it like that. It sounds cheesy. But a little bit of resonance is fine. Pulse, noise, and then adjust whatever the fuck you want. This is what the drop sounds like in full. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I didn't go over this, but I made this song before the update, the slide note update came. So to get the little, let me just play. To do like the little wheel shit, I just turned the slide up onto the intro. Alright, let's move on to the intro now. Pretend you don't notice the time skip. It's definitely not the next day. Okay, so the intro. So, like I said, the way I be doing this shit, the way I be writing songs, I usually start off with the drop. I kind of forgot how I wrote this one, but I usually start off with the drop and then I build around it. So yeah, the intro, it starts off, like the very beginning starts off the same exact way the original starts off, with the phone call bullshit. And then the piano comes in. It starts off the exact same. I'm just careful not to speed up the phone, the what's it called, the ringtone, or shit. But yeah, it starts off with the piano. Didn't really do much to it. It's just EQ, reverb, simple shit. And then you come down here. You see the chords, they get louder, sort of fade in. You don't really notice it until later, like around now. And then you hear that right there. That is the vocals again, blurred. It's just really, all I did was I stretched it out a shit ton. Yeah, it's the same thing as that's over here. Yeah, that's basically it. It gets the drive distortion drive goes up just makes it louder, and then frequency 4, you see it moving to the right slowly. Again, it's opening up those higher frequencies as time goes on to build tension. This whole section is just basically a build. So yeah, you hear the bass fading in and shit. The basses, you hear the chords, the ooze come in, the white noise, you'll hear that. And then again, the low vocal reverb thing. Again, the way I did it, I just had the first vowel drown in reverb and just increase the volume. It's just a cheap way of doing it because, FL mobile is not great. You can't bounce audio out. But yeah, also I did this here. I don't know if it's worth noting, but I just added this note here. Now to the actual build. You got the vocals here. usually do with vocals is I have the original.
I will be waiting on my phone, waiting for you to come back home.
Like very minimal post-processing bullshit on it. Just got rid of low end, just in case. Reverb. Not even a delay chorus on it just to make it wide and shit. And then I have I have a secondary channel for that like has all the effects on it. So you don't lose too much of the main signal and you have like all the effects as well. And then, so this one's like really like wide and shit. Basically this one is mono, this one is more stereo. Or this one is more mono, this one is more stereo, and they both work together beautifully.
I will be waiting on my phone, waiting for you to come back home.
Feels the space in your ears or something. Then next, you're gonna hear, I believe this is a snare. It gets louder. Just sort of like setting the DMB vibe along with this. It's a shaker, a low blip. Let me see, attack blip 4 and attack shaker 2. And then again the low flicky hat that I showed y'all before. Sort of like a sneak peek for the drop, giving you setting the DMB tone, setting the vibe and shit.
Waiting for you to come back home. I will be waiting on for you. I will be waiting.
Again, you got the bass. This is a high pass filter that's going down, so that's opening up the bass. It feels like it's getting like bigger. I know this is kind of contrary to what I did here because I kind of let the bass get louder. A good way to build tension in your builds, which I learned from Barely Alive, was you want the low end to get quieter and you want more high end over time. It kind of like gives you like the shit. And then also like when you take out the bass in the drop will hit harder. And so like when the shit drops, which is why I have no sub here, so when the shit like actually drops, it makes the bass sound, it makes everything sound more full. Yeah, you got the chords and shit, and then you got this thing again. Opening up over time. Yeah, you got the riser and the white noise. We already went over that. If you want to see how I made the riser, it's literally just saw, distortion, panner, and of course, get rid of the low end. And I kept the high end in the risers, in the effects, because the shit that you want to like take up that space above 7K, like I was talking about, you want it to be shit like effects, or your hats, or like any sort of percussion. That's what that space above 7K is for. And yeah, I forgot, this was before, like I said, I made this before the recent updates, particularly the one that added slide notes. So I made this riser with GMS on purpose because you could edit automate the pitch with this thing, and then you just automate the amount. It wasn't perfect, but I mean, it did the job. And so yeah, that's basically like the build. I'll go ahead and play like from like here to the drop. Now let's move on to the shit after the drop. So I use the sub as like an impact thing. Here, let me just... I turned up the reverb as well so that you hear like the reverb from the drop and it kind of like fades out so that it gives like the shit enough time to like release the energy from the drop. course, white noise. And yeah, this section is pretty empty. In the second half, I got the phone ringing again. Introducing that, kind of a callback to the beginning. And then I also got the riser. It was very, very quiet here. It's very subtle. It's just meant to like build the tiniest bit of tension to the next section. You really don't hear it until the end. Yeah, so the chords kind of fade in and then fade back out, sort of like they did over here in the beginning. You don't have the bass playing, or the mid bass, nor the like sub bass playing, so it's like it's a very like smushed in the middle, kind of pretty much just all mids. I was kind of going for, if you listen to Hide by Euphoria, and how do you pronounce it, Kayla? Hide by Euphoria, it kind of gives like the ambience vibes from that song. If you go listen to it, it's a very good song. I was going for that sort of feel. Yeah, there's not much to write home about there. Same thing as I did over here at the low note. Same thing right here. Then you have this distorted version of the piano, which also plays during the drop. I made this version of the piano for the drop because I wanted to put the piano in the drop, but I couldn't like have like the full piano, because then it'd get too muddy and clash with everything else. So I had this. It took me a while to figure out how to balance between like this piano and the mid bass, because they're both kind of taking up like the same like low mid frequency space. It's just meant to be another element to fill space in the drop. But I thought it sounded really cool in the end because it's like distorted and shit. You got the vinyl scratch shit, the low grainy shit. It kind of makes it sound like a little bit sad. That's kind of what I was going for. And then, yeah, nothing else changes down here. It's just the chords and the ooze. No, like, effects or anything. And then you got this vocal. It's about her waiting on the phone, so I wanted it to sound like she was on the phone. But then I also like doing this thing where it just pans left to right and shit. Wondering how I did that. You just squish it into, like, this sort of section. I think I showed y'all before. I can't remember, that shit was yesterday. And together it sounds like this. Then here I have the chords and the ooze, they shut the fuck up, and the reverb kind of fades it out. And then you have literally just a distorted piano and the distorted bullshit here. And then, yeah, last thing I did was one more shit with the little vocal reverb bullshit. That thing. I don't know, it's kind of like a fake out thing. Oh yeah, that's it. I'll play the whole thing for you. Yeah, so that's basically it for actual songwriting. Actually, one thing I want to touch on. Literally, if you're wondering how I made this fucking melody, it's literally, it's what she sings. Or not melody, riff. It's literally what she sings. Like, there's nothing creatively, like, there's nothing creative. Like, you don't have to be, look, I'm not the most creative person. That's why I make remixes all the time. Like, you don't have to fucking reinvent genres to make shit, to be a good artist. Like, you could just fucking, I'm not calling myself good. I'm not the most creative person. That doesn't matter. You don't have to be creative to make music, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I mean, sure, it helps. You don't have to fucking, like, do anything groundbreaking. You could just fucking, just make whatever the fuck you want, dude. It's fucking music. Who the fuck cares? As long as it doesn't break laws. So last thing I want to touch on is mastering. I'll do my best to explain what I was doing. I'm gonna turn everything off and I'm gonna show you basically how I did this bullshit. So first thing you'll notice is on the master channel, you see that like I have the automation bullshit. I also learned this from Barely Alive, is in the same video. Literally, if you want your drop to hit harder, like some things are not as complicated as they seem. In fact, most things aren't as complicated as they seem. If you want your drop to hit harder, just make it louder. So what I did is I made the drop louder. That's literally all I did. And then at the end of the drop, I made it quieter. It's not fucking rocket science. So that's always a cool trick you can use, especially in like bass music. Slightly raise the volume of the drop. I faded it in because it's like not like supposed to be a heavy track, but I didn't want the drop to hit. Or just EDM in general. You can just raise the volume. There are no rules to this shit. So yeah, that's the first thing. The way I usually master and the way you should master is by going to the part of your track that has the most bullshit going on. Typically, you know, like the drop. So I'll start off like here. Or maybe here. And you can use like the analyzer. They added this kind of recently, but not really recently. It'll help you visualize what you're listening to. So if you can't trust the ears enough, you use that. You can literally just look at it and it'll tell you like what needs to be louder. And that's basically what the multi-band compressor does. You can just make the low end, which is like your bass, higher. You can make the mids, which is like in between. It's just the middle. It's really middle. You can make that louder if you need to. You can make the highs louder. In this case, pretty sure I needed to make the highs louder and the mids. So I did that. It's just a compressor. I'm not very good with compressors. I have no idea like why I suck so bad or why I don't understand it. But yeah, basically I just made the mids and the highs louder. Because like I usually tend to produce pretty warm or like low end heavy, especially when I was making this, because I was using these fucking Turtle Beaches and they have like zero bass. So, and like I didn't realize, like, so in order for me to hear the bass with those bitches, I had to fucking crank that shit. But yeah, I got these now. These are cool, by the way. Only like I say only, it's pretty, they're $100, but I mean, studio fucking bullshit headphones, pretty good. I mean, honestly, look, you don't even need $100 fucking headphones, studio headphones. You get away with doing this. Just know what you're like. See, my problem with these is I didn't know that the bass was so fucking low. So just know your headset or headphones, or like know your speakers, know what you're listening on, know its tendencies, and like literally you don't need expensive shit to make shit sound good. As long as you have good ears and you know what to listen to or listen for, you could fucking make a banger with anything. It does not matter. I mean, Virtual Riot talked about making music on like fucking like basically like dollar store Logitechs. Like it does not matter. But yeah, I just turned up the high end. Anyway, I just turned up the high end. Just compressed everything basically. Turned up the highs and mids. Like I don't know how to use a fucking multi-band compressor like that. I'm still new, so I did that. Way brighter, lot more clarity in the high end. Then I distorted it with tube distortion very slightly just to increase the volume. Then you use another compressor. This just makes it even louder. Listen, when you're making EDM, For some reason, EDM producers like their shit to be loud and obnoxious. So you want like fucking absolute sausage waveforms. You want your shit to literally look like this. Like if you go on SoundCloud, look up fucking, I don't know, Barely Alive. Look up Virtual Riot. Look up Samplifier, any fucking dubstep producer. Their dubstep track waveforms are literally just like sausages. They just look like sausages. And yeah, that's basically what a compressor does. So I'll play it with and without. It's very subtle. I hardly even notice it myself. But yeah, then I just do some EQs on just to clean it up, get rid of some resonant frequencies and shit. And then more distortion. Look, I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret. Don't use limiters. Don't fucking use limiters. Limiters make it sound like shit. So use a clipper to limit. It does the same fucking thing, but it just sounds better. Okay, just use a clipper and you turn up the drive to whatever, like you start from 0, turn up the drive to whatever sounds good. If it starts distorting too much, then you just, you know, turn it back down until you find that sweet spot. For me, for this track, it was 25. And yeah, you'll see that it keeps it consistent. Like for the drop, it'll stay as like pretty much 0 consistently. And that's what you want in EDM at least. I mean, that's pretty much all I did. Before I had a limiter on it. Now that I've remastered it, it's a clipper, a distortion, or clip distortion. I guess I should have explained this. A limiter literally turns down the volume of the whole track. The clipper just literally, it clips anything over, like whatever volume you set it to. Our goal is 0. It clips like whenever the track gets louder than 0, it just it clips it and it makes sure it doesn't get louder than 0. And yeah, that's also what makes the kick. It's the distortion, the clip distortion. Soft clipping is another form of clipping. It's just soft clipping. You don't get that punch with the limiter. You get the punch with the clipper. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it. Again, look, I'm not a fucking professional. Anyone who happens to know more than me, it's not a high bar at all. I know like next to nothing. Y'all can help me out so I can know what to fucking do and know what to explain better and shit. Or if y'all have questions, say some in the comments. Hopefully you learned something. And like I said in the very beginning, hopefully I inspired someone out there to pick up their phone and start making a banger. Again, like FL Mobile is fucking $15. It costs $15 to make a banger, so like there's no fucking excuse. If you want to know how I got these vocals, in fact, let me show y'all something real quick. Y'all want to know how to get fucking somewhat decent acapellas? You go right here to audiostrip.co.uk. You drag the fucking song into here, the song file, you gotta download it. I use this shit, and yeah, it just extracts vocals for you. That's how I got the vocals out of this song, and it sounded pretty good, mainly because the song was pretty empty. It's literally just piano, drums, and her voice.
I will be waiting on my phone, waiting for you to...
But yeah, it's the best acapella extractor that I know that's free. So yeah, go hit up that website if y'all want fucking good shit. I learned it from, was it Protohype? Yeah, I believe I got that from Protohype. So go check them out. Go check out everybody that I mentioned. They all deserve your love. Yeah, hopefully this was helpful again. Hopefully I inspired someone. If not, then I don't know, go fuck yourself. Go listen to the fucking the remix. It's like right here. So go listen to it. Or don't, I guess. I don't fucking know. You could keep watching this for, I don't know, another 20 seconds. I wouldn't recommend watching like the rest of this, because like I'm not gonna say anything of use. I'm literally just gonna ramble for exactly 20 seconds until I get cut off by editing me.